By late October, the heat in Mill Creek, Mississippi, had settled into the bones of the houses. Even after sundown, it didn't lift. The air hung damp against the skin and carried the sweetrot smell of wet leaves and the slow brown river bending through the cypress swamp. Folks said it was just the season taking its time. Caroline Hayes thought it felt more like the season had got stuck, like whatever usually turned the days over had simply stopped here. Her place was an old shotgun house 50 yards from where pine gave way to cypress. In daylight, you could see the water between the trunks, black, slow, wearing a skin of green that only shifted when something slid beneath. After dark, the tree lean turned into a solid wall. It began, she'd tell herself later, with the porch light. One still night the bulb swayed, the glow trembling over the boards as though the house itself had gone unsteady. Jasper, her hound, used to meet her outside in the evenings. Now he stayed inside after sunset, belly low to the floor, ears tilted toward the door. The first wrong thing inside was the water. A shallow puddle in the middle of the kitchen floor, no drips from the ceiling, no wet prints, no smell of plumbing trouble. It wasn't spreading, just sitting still, a faint ripple crossing it now and again. When she bent over it, something pale flickered beneath, turning toward her. In the days after, she began waking at the back door, palm flat on the cool metal lock. Jasper would be beside her, body rigid, making a noise too low to call a growl. Out beyond the swing of the bulb, past the ragged grass, came the sound of slow steps through shallow water, too far apart for an animal, too measured for the wind to fake. Little shifts followed. Photographs hung for years sat wrong by a degree or two. One frame lay face down on the hallway floor, glass hole, the picture warped at the edges like it had been wet. In its background, behind a younger Caroline and her parents, a figure stood knee-deep in water, distant but centered as if it had posed there. That was before the dragging started. Long, slow pulls across the siding outside her bedroom. Sometimes shoulder-high, sometimes low, but always ending beneath the window. Then came the jar. Clouded, hand-blown glass, squat and wide-mouthed, sitting dead center on her kitchen table. Half full of water dark enough to look solid, and something inside it that wasn't floating, something that moved when she leaned closer. It didn't dart or drift, it turned, the way a living thing does when it becomes aware of you. She spent that night on the couch, lights on, Jasper curled tight by her knees. In the morning, the jar was gone, leaving only a damp ring on the wood. After that, the breathing came often. At the foot of her bed. Just behind whatever wall her back was to. Not fast, not ragged, patient. The puddle in the kitchen returned daily, always trembling, sometimes holding a reflection that wasn't hers, black eyes, round and fixed, unblinking. The swamp itself began to look different. Trees hunched closer to the fence. In the fog just after dusk, pale vertical shapes stood where no trunks grew. She never saw them move, but they were never in the same place twice. One night she woke to silence so total it made her throat tighten. No frogs, no night insects, no distant traffic hum from the highway. Jasper padded to the back door, ears forward. Outside, something walked faster than before through the swamp skin of water, splashing lightly, coming closer. She flicked the porch light on. The swamp edge stood yards nearer than it had at dusk, close enough she could see droplets slicking the bark. The smell hit her then, stagnant water and fish gone to rot. The bulb dimmed, not flickered, dimmed like the dark was drinking it. A puddle was forming on the top step, no sound of rain, its surface already trembling. Two black ovals surfaced in it, holding her gaze. She bolted the door and turned. The jar was back on the table, wet ring spreading under it. Inside, the dark rolled and flexed like something stretching. Breathing started again, this time from the other side of the door. Then Jasper's stare pulled her toward the hallway. The walls seemed farther apart, and shimmering in the air was the shape of cypress trunks where no trees could be. That night she dreamed she was in her bedroom, but the windows were panels of still water. Behind the glass, slow-moving figures drifted just out of focus. She couldn't move toward or away from them. At the grocery next day, she caught a reflection in the freezer glass, a smiling woman whose mouth didn't match the shape of her cheeks. She turned. The aisle was empty. That evening, the jar waited on the table, filled to the brim. She draped a towel over it, shut herself in the bedroom. When she woke in the dark, the jar sat on her nightstand, uncovered. The water was perfectly still. Rooms began closing to Jasper. He'd stand in the doorway, tail rigid, watching her cross them. The swamp smell seeped into the drywall. Each time she passed a window, she swore the trees were nearer. Then came the sound of someone already standing on her front porch. No approach, just weight shifting on the boards. A long scrape, and then, her own voice from the other side of the door, quiet and coaxing, "Caroline, open the door." Something pressed the glass in the upper half of the door. Long, narrow shapes like fingers flexed once. The jar sloshed without being touched. Inside, the darkness climbed toward the surface. Jasper barked, sharp, rapid, but the sound felt pulled away, thin to nothing. He backed toward the hall, nails skittering, and when she turned, the floor was running with an inch of water, reflecting a low, beam-slung ceiling she'd never seen. Beyond it lay the swamp, black water, blacker sky. Breathing again. This time at her back. The air against her neck was warm and wet. "You've been in the water all along," the voice said, hers, but not. The jar tipped without falling. Dark slid out, thick as smoke, curling over the floor toward her feet. She blinked, and she was knee-deep among cypress knees. Her house's light was a dim smear beyond a wall of trees. Shapes swam just under the surface, brushing her legs without breaking water. A head weighted the figure from the fence, pale and tilted. It began walking backward into deeper dark, eyes fixed on hers. She followed. The water deepened but didn't fight her steps. Pale shapes kept pace just below. The moon hung swollen and green above. A clearing opened, not land, but a vast black pool. In the center, crude timber structures ringed with lanterns that didn't flicker. Dozens of long-limbed watchers stood there, heads cocked, every one of them turned toward her. The breathing was everywhere now, one great set of lungs drawing her in. A plankway stretched from where she stood to the center post. She stepped onto it. Lantern light revealed faces she knew, neighbors, people from town, her sister, all altered, eyes black as swamp water. At the center sat the jar. Inside was her face, smiling wide, eyes dark void. "This is the part where you stop leaving," it mouthed. The plank sank under her weight as the water rose, warm as a held breath. The jar leaned toward her without spilling. She looked back, no path, no house, just the swamp and sky pressed close. The glass opened like a pond surface breaking. Dark inside it poured toward her. It climbed her legs, her waist, her ribs, heavier than water but pulling her down as gently as sleep. She caught the pale figure's gaze one last time before the black slid into her mouth, her lungs, her eyes. And then she was standing in her kitchen. Morning light through the window. The table bare except for a damp ring. Jasper in the hall, watching her without blinking. She exhaled in a shaky laugh. In the glass of the window, her reflection didn't laugh back. It stood perfectly still, head tilted. A thin ripple spread across the inside of the glass. It looked like the surface of dark water. And then it began to smile.